And I want to welcome everyone to our new webinar season for SCORE. We're really excited to be going into the fall. We have a lot of really fantastic topics, including the one today. So I want to welcome everyone to our new SCORE season in webinar training. So we're going to be doing Striking the Balance and Work-Life Integration for Small Business Success. We have a new presenter with us today, and I'm really excited for you to meet her. I'm going to talk about SCORE first as we get going so that you know the different things that we do here. So one of the most important things that SCORE does is its mentoring, other than our training and webinar information. Mentoring is free and confidential, and our mentors come to us with a wide variety of experience and knowledge from their own business successes and failures that they want to share with others. They want to help people that are in all stages of business. We work with those that are in the phase of, well, do I want to open a small business? Is it right for me? We work with those that are in that planning phase, working to get all their information organized and ready to go. And we work with those that are already in business. They come to us with all kinds of different questions, whether it's financial or marketing or sales. We generally have a mentor that can help you with those questions. If we don't have one in our local chapter, we can reach out to the district and to the national database of volunteers to find someone to try and get those questions answered. What happens for the mentoring session? That first session is going to be a get to know you. They want to know what your goals and your concerns are, or your struggles that you might be having. And then they're going to help you formulate a plan to either overcome or to get to those goals. Sometimes they invite other mentors to work with you as well. You can see there's a QR code there if you want to connect directly to the mentoring request page, you can do that. You can also just put a note in chat and I can pull that out and reach out to you separately if you'd like. That's not a problem. When you go to the mentoring page, it's very easy. You can just go to score.org and put in your zip code and it will direct you to the chapter that's nearest you. You can also check out all the chapters here in our district, and there's a lot of great information on the website that you can find. It'll have all the upcoming webinars and workshops we have, as well as a library with all kinds of blogs and different tools that you can use and templates that you can download. We are going to be using the chat today and not the Q&A tab if you've been with us before. So information can go into chat, and I think Aileen's going to have some things that she's going to ask of you throughout this presentation. So I want to welcome Aileen Axtmayer, and I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you so much. Let me share my screen here. Okay. Thank you so much, Teresa. I'm really excited for our conversation today. I know it's a topic that we hear about a lot. We might have even gone to other trainings and workshops on, and there's many, many different ways to approach this. So I appreciate everyone either joining today or watching the replay. And my goal is that everyone walks away with at least one thing that feels accessible and approachable to integrate into their lives, whatever's going on in them, to feel they're more grounded and they're more intentional about moving forward. So here's our plan for today. We're going to get into this concept of work-life integration, and we're going to talk in a very candid way about it, because I think sometimes there's some messaging out there that can be a little bit challenging and not reality-based. I want to get into what this really is about and what it can look like in your life. We're going to talk about some tools for nervous system regulation, managing the mental load, whether you're thinking about starting your small business or you're already well into it. This is going to be something that is applicable any stage in that journey, and I'm really, really excited about it. All throughout our conversation, feel free to throw things in the chat. I'm going to prompt you on certain kind of areas, as Teresa mentioned as well. And especially if there's anything that I can clarify, feel free to put it in there. And if I miss it, Teresa will call me out and make sure we get you that clarification that you need. So instead of kind of going through a lot of information on my background, I just wanted to share that for this conversation, I'm coming from a place of not just a small business owner, but also as someone who has a lot of things outside of that need to be in this concept of work-life integration. So I have a 4-year-old daughter, my 7-year-old, my firstborn Buster here, and I've been a caretaker for a sick parent before for a number of years. And these are all things that are incredibly challenging and consuming of time in and of themselves. So I just like to share that personal anecdote because sometimes coming into these conversations, we might think, oh yeah, that they've got all these people in this. I'm coming from a position, hopefully, that is relatable, understandable, that I have managed many things at the same time, and I've come out the other side, and I'm sharing tools and practices that are not just rooted in research, but they're things that have really supported me when I felt like I was just treading water. So without further ado, we're going to get into our topic today. So this might be kind of a funny thing to start off with, since balance is in the title of this, but I want to just say the idea of work-life balance is kind of baloney. So we want to think about this constant assessing of all these different things going on in our lives and the prioritization of that and where we want to spend our energy and where our energy is being pulled. So there's this notion out there we've seen before of, okay, you might, if you Google work-life balance, you're going to see something that shows like a scale and works on one side and life's on the other, and they're very evenly balanced. And we know that's not how it really works. We have different seasons of our lives where different challenges and different things come up. And it's this constantly evolving process to find, one, what's my priority? And two, how can I spend my energy on the things that matter and still feel like I have time? Excuse me, I have a little cold, so you might hear that a little bit today. My apologies. So we can continuously explore this and what really matters to us. And you might have heard of this analogy before of thinking about work and life as different balls that we're juggling. So it's a work-life juggle. And there's this person who shared that some of those balls are plastic and some are glass. And the key is to think about what are those things that are glass to you, where if you drop them, that's really going to have a negative impact. And what are the things that can go by the wayside more? And especially if you're starting off your business, it can feel like you just added 22 more balls into that juggling system. This is not binary. So this is situational. Your kids, perhaps, or your family in general may be a glass ball to you. But if there's something that comes up, say an event or an opportunity that you're making a decision on, maybe that event in and of itself is more plastic compared to a work priority that might be glass in that moment. So I share all this to say there's a lot of nuance here, and I'm going to give you tools and strategies for using this framework to think about how it applies to your life. Excuse me. So really what it comes down to, this ability to do any of the juggling, from my perspective, comes down to our nervous systems. And we'll walk through this in good detail today. But if we don't feel this sense of balance internally, this groundedness, no matter what's going on, no matter how many things are pulling our energy and attention, everything's going to feel that much harder if we're stuck in this imbalanced mode internally, mind and body. So let's get into that in good detail here. I want to make sure we're all on the same page as we think about coming at work and life and integrating everything in a reasonable, sustainable way from a place of a grounded nervous system. So when we think about stress, this is a term just like work-life balance, work-life harmony, or a phrase like that we've heard a lot, but I want to make sure we get clear on what it really is. So especially when you're starting off a business, when you're even 10 years into a business, I've had mine for 7 years now, and you're still drinking from the proverbial fire hose in different ways as your business grows. So I want to start off not demonizing all stress. When we think about work-life harmony, we think, okay, get stress out of here and then everything will be easier. And that's just not how life works. So throw in the chat if you have heard of the term eustress before. It's the word on the left here. So every time I ask this question, I get maybe one or two yeses, but most people have not heard of this term. So eustress has to do with it's basically defined as good stress. It's this sensation of being pushed outside of our comfort zone and being forced to rise to a challenge, whether it be personally or professionally. And we feel that sense of challenge, maybe a little bit of adrenaline starts going, but we're not pushed to a point of overwhelm. And that's the main difference. So we need good stress to grow personally, professionally. What we're focusing on in our conversation today is distress, chronic stress, or this fight, flight, freeze mode in our bodies. So I share this because I want us to start to create this framework to delineate between the information we're receiving, the feelings that we're having, and notice, does this really qualify as something that deserves me to feel stressed about it? Or is this something where I can think, oh, this is hard, but this is my growth edge. I'm starting this business and I'm excited about it and I'm challenged and I was bored in that last job. So this is really exciting to be challenged. Things to kind of reframe how we approach this. There's a TED Talk I'm linking to that goes into all of this good stress in more detail. It's called How to Make Stress Your Friend. So if you want to learn more about that, I definitely recommend checking that out. But when we're talking about the not so helpful, not so beneficial type of stress today, I want to share what's going in our minds, what's happening when we have this physiological response. So when we perceive something as a threat, it's an automatic response that happens, and our brain shifts. Our prefrontal cortex, this more executive functioning part of our brain, it's out of here. We go into this more reptilian survival mode. And think about as you approach anything in your life, but particularly your work or thinking about your business, we need our prefrontal cortex to do creative problem solving, to think critically. And if we're stuck in this state, everything's going to be harder to achieve and to do work and life because our brains are literally not online in the way that they're needed for that type of living. So this is probably way more information than anyone really wants to know, but I like to share it because our emotions are connected to all of this. So if you feel like you've started your business or you're thinking of starting your business and you're not feeling joy, feeling that curiosity, that openness, that kind of flow state, explore how your nervous system is feeling on a regular basis. And the odds are you might be in that more fear-based response because your nervous system is not regulated. And the good news is I'm going to give you the tools to regulate throughout our conversation today. So I want us to check in. Teresa is going to launch our first poll here because lots of times in life, we're not in this zooming out mode. We're in the go, go, go. And this is what today's conversation is about, really pausing and checking in on ourselves. So I'll stop talking for a second, take a moment, and then we'll close it in just about a minute. I'm just checking back in the chat here. Someone was just Googling it. I love it. Eustress is what convinced me to start my own business. Beautiful, Kelly. Love that. And let's go into closing the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Awesome. So Teresa's going to share. Let's see where people are at today. 33 is across the board for our nervous system. How do you rate your stress levels on average? So no one's at a 0 to 2, which I'm not surprised by. Every so often there's someone and I'm like, can we chat afterwards? Can you tell me your secrets? But we have 33%, 3 to 5, 6 to 8, and 9 to 10. When rating your energy levels, we have a pretty decent split here, but the majority of you are 3 to 5. So 0 is exhausted, 10 is high energy. So no one is above an 8. So we're definitely going to talk about how to explore supporting you in each of these ways. So thank you all for taking the time to share. So with thinking about this, our stress, our energy, and as we think about this, nervous system based approach to work-life integration and orienting to all the things on our plates, This system may sound really simple. And a lot of what we talk about today actually may seem simple, but simple doesn't mean easy. We might know we need to drink enough water, and then the day goes by and we've had 2 coffees and that's it. So uh, I'd encourage you as you think about our conversation today, and I'd even grab a pen and piece of paper, note what feels accessible to you, but then we're going to create a plan to actually use some of the neuroscience of habit change to move from simple to easily or more easily integrated into your life. So before we get into anything, we have to know how we're actually feeling. That check-in that you just did, how often are you doing that with yourself? Most of us are not really zooming out in a consistent way to even see how we're feeling physically, mentally, and emotionally. And when we're actually doing that, we're more able to take better care of ourselves and to assess what our priorities are, because otherwise we're just kind of in that automatic way of being. And we can't take care of ourselves in the best ways if we even don't know how we're feeling or doing. So before I go into all these evidence-based strategies, I just want to share, you know a lot already. I'm going to give you tools, but you guaranteed, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, already know something that helps you feel more like you, helps you feel more like your best self. And sometimes the challenge is just the disconnect between the knowing and the doing. So if you just started your own business and your head's in 700 different places, speaking from experience, sometimes we know that going for a walk makes you feel like a new human, but let me just get this one more thing done. Let me just do this one other thing. And there's a disconnect there. So my nudge for you is start with you, start with what's proven and known. What feels most out of alignment or most challenging for you right now? And what is your stress reliever? What helps you crank that knob down? And question 2, are you tapping into it regularly? The knowing versus the doing. So pause here and just jot down anything that came up for you in this. And yes, you will be receiving the recording. Thank you for asking. And I actually recommend a lot of the tools and resources I'll share today. I want you to come back to over and over as you move through different seasons of life. And even just right now, creating a note for yourself. How often do you want to hold yourself accountable or have your score mentor hold you accountable to checking in this way? Maybe you make a quarterly check-in so you can zoom out and say, okay, what's going on here? This is now a priority. This has happened, and you recalibrate. So let's get into the strategies and all of these practices to really help you take good care of yourself, no matter where you are in the stage of your business, even if you're just noodling on it at this point, or you're a seasoned entrepreneur. All these tools are evidence-based, but I share a lot. So grab your pen, piece of paper. There's a handout that goes with this you'll have access to as well. But if I share something and you think, Aileen, that's never going to work in the realities of my life, let it go in one ear, out the other. I do share a lot because we're all coming at this from different perspectives, experiences, and life realities. And I want there to be something for every single person here. So I share not to overwhelm, but to educate everyone from where they're coming at this from. So thinking of this, there's some statistics I won't even get into on burnout, but for many small business owners, we move into our own business thinking, I'm gonna do what I really want to do, and that is exciting, yet it can be harder to turn off when we're so invested personally in what we're doing. And especially if you're the only person running your business, there's some challenges there sometimes with feeling like you can really step away, because you might think, well, if not me, who's going to do this? How is this going to get done? And while we want to use SCORE to think about systems we can put in place, resources, collaborations to manage that load, we're going to talk today about how do we shift that mental state to start to be more comfortable with the discomfort of not being able to achieve and do everything at the end of every day, leaving other stuff on the to-do list. And I'm a color coding fan. I like my lists. I even write stuff on them that I already have done so I can check it off because it feels so good. So I get that that's a struggle, but we're going to talk about how to start to create more peace and ease in our bodies to be okay with that. So I want you to think about emotions as having a beginning, middle, and end. They're neurological events that you can imagine going through a tunnel to process and move through an emotion. Now, the challenge is here when we experience some of the more challenging emotions that are not the rainbows and butterflies variety, we often will numb out, will avoid, or if you imagine back to that cycle, we're just not even super conscious of it. We kind of think, oh, yeah, I'm stressed, but whatever, I got to do this thing, I got to do that. And we avoid. So then that emotion gets stuck in the tunnel. We don't name it, experience it, move through it, and take care of ourselves. And that's where burnout comes from, is these pent up emotions and challenging experiences that we just haven't moved through. So we're going to get into how to complete that stress cycle in our bodies because we know life is going to life. Stress is going to happen. Some of it's good stress. So yay, we like that. Some of it's the less beneficial and meant to be for survival, not a constant state type of stress. So when that happens, one, we got to notice when it's happening. We got to know what our cues are in our mind and our body. And two, we need to take action to get our nervous system out of that mode and into a more restorative place. Our minds are going to come back online and we can be able to show up and be more present in our lives. So, how do we do this? I highly, highly, highly recommend the book Burnout, The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle by the Nagoski sisters. I quote this book, I think, every day, Monday through Friday. I swear it's one of my favorite resources, well researched and evidence based, but really eye opening to think about how we orient towards success, orient towards our work and our world. So, a lot of this that I'm going to share is from that. So, here are some ways to get unstuck. When we go into fight, flight, freeze, can we notice it and integrate any of these? Or two, can we just do some of these things automatically in our day to day so that even if we're not aware of what's going on in our nervous systems, we're doing work to help us feel like happier and more grounded. So the first step is positive social interaction, or the first option I'll share. This might sound strange. You might think, Aileen, what are you talking about here? But when we connect with others, and that's one of the beautiful things about the SCORE community, you have other human beings in this same journey or a similar space as you. And it doesn't even have to be SCORE, it could be friends, family, whomever. But chatting with someone else, even a barista at a coffee shop, and say, hey, I like your earrings. Oh, da, 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 whatever it might be. This actually helps your mind get out of that cycle and your body to come back to a more grounded state. Because if you imagine fight, flight, freeze, if you were running from a lion, tiger, or bear, which is how your body experiences that stress cycle, you wouldn't be chatting about earrings or pumpkin spice lattes. You would be, you just can't do both at the same time. So these small connective moments have an incredible impact on our nervous systems. Laughter. So another one that sounds funny, but same idea. When we're laughing, a true from the gut kind of laugh, not the social lubricant laugh, this tells our nervous system, come into that parasympathetic state, you're safe, and you can start to heal and recover from whatever that stress was. So think about, as you build your business, as you move through just life in general, who are the people that make you laugh? I'm a big comedy show person. I love going to comedy shows. I like watching them on Netflix. So how can you have that be part of your work-life integration plan? Affection. So when we are in a consensual embrace, the amount of time doesn't really matter. It's just we all have that friend or family member who goes in for the hug and they really hang on. They're actually onto something. We measure differences in our hormones. Our blood pressure drops, our heart rate goes down. We release oxytocin. It's the same idea. If you were running from a lion, tiger, bear, that's very opposite of an experience from a hug. The hug tells your body you're safe and it cues that into your brain. Another one, think about that tunnel. A lot of times when it comes to more challenging seasons of life, we mute crying or we think, I can't start crying. If I start, I'm just not going to stop. And crying is a beautiful physiological release of that pent up emotion. So imagine that, say, a deer running from a lion. I think lions chase deer, but just go with me on this. And the deer escapes the threat. They sometimes will do a shake, like you see, National Geographic, whatever, animals will do a shake. They're releasing that feeling and then they're moving on. They're not sitting and ruminating and thinking, man, I almost got eaten there. That's what we do. We perseverate and we keep repeating the stress cycle in our bodies. Crying is an example of essentially that same kind of shake or release for us. Creative expression. So, painting, dancing, singing, stitching, drawing, whatever it might be, even thinking about your business, getting creative about writing and content creation. This is activating a different part of our brain that cannot be on at the same time as that fight, flight, freeze mode. We're going to talk about the last two in a little bit more detail because they're two of the most efficient and effective ways. But I want to check anything in the chat. The authors of the Burnout book, it's Emily and Amelia Nagoski. It's Nagoski, Nagoski. I think I said it right, but the book title is Burnout, The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle. So if you Google that, you'll find them. And they have a whole website. They've done amazing podcast interviews as well. Beautiful. Okay. So let's get into these last two here. So I mentioned before that stress response is automatic. So if you were going across the street and a car comes a little too close and you jump back, you don't have to say to your body, oh, that was stressful, have this response go. It's automatically turning on, which is challenging when it's not something that's actually life-threatening. Like you see your inbox is a dumpster fire and a disaster. That's cueing this response for us. So we need to do some work to notice when these not life and death stressors are creating that response. And the good news is we can control our relaxation response, the opposite of fight, flight, freeze. And one way to do this is by manipulating our vagus nerve. Now, the vagus nerve, is one of the longest nerves in the body, runs from the crown of your head down to your gut. And it's one of the ways we can turn our parasympathetic nervous system on. Essentially, it's kind of this activation, this thing that activates that more rest and digest mode. So we breathe without thinking, but when we breathe in a way that it taps the vagus nerve, manipulates the vagus nerve, it's something we can control to start to turn this repair mode on. So we notice here, heart rate slows, same thing as that hug, really. These same biomarkers are impacted. The challenge here is for many people, excuse me, for many of us, we're born knowing how to breathe. If you imagine a little kiddo running around in their diaper, they've got that Buddha belly. You see it going in and out. Most people, I think the stats are something like 80% of people are dysregulated in the way that they're breathing. So we are still breathing, we're alive, right? But we're doing it in a way that is not conducive to more of a restorative and grounded nervous system. We start to breathe more in our chest. So think about running from the lion, tiger, bear. You're not going to take these long yogic breaths. You're going to take quick, shallow breathing. What happens is we're sitting in our desks a lot, right? We're constricting our capacity, our lung capacity. We're also in a society, a lot of us are told, suck in, be smaller, and that constricts our breathing as well. But when we're, say, taking in a lot of information at our computers, there's a concept actually called screen apnea, where we hold our breath or we go into this more shallow pace. And then that cues to our body that stress response needs to turn on because our body thinks, oh, you're breathing in that way. Let me see where the threat is. So it's this vicious cycle. This is what it should like. We should breathe big enough for our diaphragm to expand and contract, or to move rather, when our lungs expand and contract. And for most of us, this sounds, once again, simple but not easy. This can be really hard to reconnect to. And my invitation for you is, if that feels true for you, if you notice even right now where your breath is, how can you start to try to retrain your brain and body to come back to this healthier, more supportive way of this basic human function that impacts everything? It impacts our brains, our bodies, our mood. There's an excellent book. I'm such a book nerd here, so I'll share another. James Nestor, his book is called Breath, the New Science of a Lost Art. If you want to go all into all things breath work, that can be a resource to support it. But this posture can be helpful because laying on the ground and having more space to breathe can really help you reconnect if you're feeling this disconnect. I'm going to make us start to check in here. So if you're comfortable, adjust yourself in your seat and just give a little taste here of this connection to your breath as I stop talking and give you a little quiet. Let's take our last round together. See if you can feel your belly rise as you inhale through your nose. And see if you can feel it fall with this last exhale together. I want to just check in on the chat. Anybody notice a difference even with that little micro mindful moment? Do you notice any qualities of your breath? Does anyone do breath work on their own? It's starting to get trendy now, but for good reason. There's a lot of goodness there. So anyone notice anything that came up just with this little blip of breath work? Slim is learning. Michaela, I feel more at peace and relaxed, a sense of peace. Ah, that makes me so happy. So this is what I'm talking about. Little things. When we think about the juggling, we think about those glass plastic balls. There's a lot. It doesn't take totally changing your entire life around to feel this peace, to tap into this innate calm that we all have. It's just that connection, moving from the knowing to the doing. I'm going to share more about how to integrate more of this towards the end. But right now, just note for yourself, if that felt good to you, how can you start to think about plugging these breathing breaks into your day? Or do you know someone else that would benefit from this? And can you be accountability buddies for that? Little things can make a big impact like you just experienced. All right, the last part here for completing the stress cycle we'll talk about today is the movement. So the data shows us between 20 and 60 minutes needed to complete the stress cycle. It's different person to person. This is one of those things where you might think, Aileen, I know movement's good. I'm supposed to do it. And I can raise my hand. Raise your hand if you know you could move more and get more movement consistently in your day. And you don't. Like, you know, you could do it. You know, it makes you feel better. You know, it's good for all the things. And sometimes it goes by the wayside. Raising my own hand here. So my prompt for you here to check in on is what gets in the way? And sometimes it's this orienting towards movement we think we should do versus what we actually enjoy and we want. So can you take a moment to think about what would feel good for you? If you crave yoga, choose that instead of the thing that you don't like doing. Picking the type of movement that helps you feel more like you is going to be the thing you're going to be more likely to do. So I'm going to pause here for a sec so you can jot down anything. How much of those are in your day-to-day already? How can you think about even picking one that feels exciting, accessible, and just make a note of what you want to try to bring more of into your life moving forward? Okay, we got through work-life integration, real talk, balance is baloney. This is a constantly evolving thing. We talked about thinking about this from a nervous system perspective, but now we're going to get into more of the tactical. Okay, I'm feeling grounded. I'm approaching this from an intentional way, but life is still a lot of stimulation, information. You're a person, you might be a partner, you might be a caregiver, you might be just in that rush of running your business that takes a lot. We're going to talk more and shift into working smarter versus harder in terms of optimizing this work-life integration. So this is an exercise that I recommend saving. I'm going to actually throw it in the chat too. So you have access to this if you, and Teresa, I'll send this to you separately if you want as well, to have as a note with the recording. You can copy this Google Doc, do this, and bookmark this to come back to over and over and over again. This is a way to start to zoom out. We want to look first, how can we create some calm within? And then how can we look at what might be causing stress and distress because of a lack of alignment and understanding of what our priorities are and how our life is or is not setting ourselves up to tap into these priorities. So you have this exercise, and give us just a minute here or two to start to think about this. We may not have time to move through the whole thing, but start to follow the prompts here and look at these different areas, even without doing any drawing or anything on the Google Doc. As you look at this, what feels most stressful or dissatisfying in terms of how you're orienting towards it right now? You can share it in the chat if you want, or just note it for yourself as we move forward. I'll give us about 1 or so more minutes here. And again, don't worry if you haven't finished the whole thing, but it's a tool you can have in your toolkit to start to explore those balls you're balancing or juggling. All right. Throw in the chat if you want me to give you more time for this. Give you a few more seconds. If I don't hear from anybody, move us forward and you've got access to this forever. All right, we're good. Thank you so much. So how do we kind of think about doing the things that require all this energy and attention? Throw in the chat if this could be you, just to Photoshop yourself in there, if this is how you feel on a day-to-day basis. So of course, step one is, if we're going to look like this, we want to have that grounded sense within us to have the ability to use our brain in these competing ways. But step two is, how do we actually do this whole work never ends, life never ends? We're kind of going through and having to manage so much information, stimulation, and priorities. So a lot of people are, this is me. Yes. Okay. So you are not alone. There's this concept called the switch cost effect. The average person is distracted or interrupted every 40 seconds when working in front of their computer. Emails alone cause about 96 interruptions, which is, in an 8-hour day, about an hour and a half of extra work and time because of this recovery of having to come back to the task at hand. So say you're in this state of focus, you're in the zone, you're doing that business plan, you're whatever it is, and then you get the notification coming up. Even if you decide not to click on it and stay focused on what you're doing, that still requires energy and attention. So as much as it is possible, can we start to think about how much is this happening for us and what's within our control to start to mitigate some of those notifications and stimulation so that we don't have all this extra time being taken to reorient to the task at hand. So oftentimes we say, oh, these phones, you get so sucked in, whatever it might be. Yes, there are challenges with technology, but also my nudge here is, if we get into our real talk with ourselves and each other, especially when you're starting a business, sometimes we're just kind of overwhelmed. And when, for some of us, if we're stressed or we're experiencing more of our challenging emotions, we lean into technology, particularly screens and social media, to distract ourselves, to numb out, to kind of hide in that tunnel we were talking about. So one, check in on that coping mechanism of yours, but two, how can we control a little bit more of technology from just creating more inefficiencies in our day-to-day? So let's get into those tools, tips, tricks, and strategies. This is going to be possible and not possible depending on your life, but I'll throw this out as an option. Again, take what you want, leave the rest. If this would never work in your life, say you're still a full-time employee and you're starting a business and you whatever, and this just can't work, don't worry about it. For some of you, this can be an interesting way to explore managing your work and your life. Our brains have a maximum capacity and ability to focus. So a lot of us will sit down and think, okay, 8 to 5 or whatever it might be, let's go. And we expect ourselves to be able to focus that entire time. Maybe we pop out for lunch, but that's not how our brains work. So imagine you are weight training, you're lifting, you're doing some bicep curls, and you're using 40-pound weights, that sounds aggressive, but you're doing it. You wouldn't do 400 sets all in one. You would do your set of 10 reps, put it down, get a break, come back, and then you can achieve that thing. We want to think about our brains in the same way. We're setting ourselves up for those 400 reps, and we need those breaks to actually be able to have that recovery to bring our resources back online and be able to focus. So there's a system called ultradian cycles where we batch that and expect of ourselves maximum 90 minutes of focus time at a time. And then we know this brain, it's saying I'm spent, and we give ourselves that real break. And don't kill the messenger, but the break does not mean scrolling social. We need real defocused activities like going for a walk, looking at something in nature, even washing the dishes, something where our brain is not consistently being overstimulated. So if that is something you can integrate in your day-to-day, I would nudge that exploration and see how leaning into those natural rhythms works for you. When we think about working smarter and not necessarily harder, our sleep impacts everything else we have the bandwidth for as well. So throw in the chat. I forget, Teresa, if I had a poll for this, but I'd love to just check in. If I didn't, I did have a poll. Okay. Check in on your sleep and really be, again, judgment-free zone, intentional here about how you're really feeling about this. Quality and quantity. And this might correlate with a lot of you saying you don't have that energy. Okay. We have 71% of you saying, nope, I'm not usually waking up refreshed, or I'm not getting the quantity of sleep either. So thank you all for sharing. Just that alone. Awareness can influence action. What's within your control? Can you raise your hand if you're a revenge bedtime person? That's me. Once I put my 4-year-old down, my dog is walked. Finally, it's me time and I want my Netflix. I don't want to just go to bed. So I know sometimes I go to bed later than I should for my body and brain, but it's something I tap into, and then I start to notice, this has been consistent. Let me reel it back in. So is there anything within your control? And if you're doing all those things within your control and you're just not getting quality and quantity, there is a hack. So this might be how some of you feel. And if you need that extra nudge to kind of say, okay, yes, I'm a revenge bedtime person. Maybe I need to just go 10 minutes earlier at a time. Those little things can make a big difference. So just start there and see if it has an impact on your ability to focus and have the energy to do all these things that are requiring your time and attention. Sometimes life will just get in the way of that quality or quantity sleep, depending on many, many different factors. So if you're prioritizing everything, but still not getting it, good news. Yoga Nidra is a style of guided meditation, a guided body relaxation scan, essentially. And it's under this umbrella of non-sleep deep rest. And essentially what happens when you're in this kind of practice is your body is in between the state of wake and sleep, and your body starts to feel like it's recovered its lost sleep. So I have a Yoga Nidra, I'm trained in this guided body relaxation scan for you at the end, but you can also Google this, YouTube this, and You can do it any time of day. So if you're feeling that slump in energy, you can do it earlier on. If you have trouble staying asleep, falling asleep, this can be a tool to put in the toolkit as well. Last thing here on thinking about our orientation towards doing the things we need to do is to think about this concept of neuroplasticity. Our brains like to be lazy. They like to do things the way they want to do them because they want to conserve energy. So any of these habit changes require some hacking or some effort on our parts. But the good news is with this awareness, we can then be more likely again to take that action. But how can we start to retrain our brain to be able to get into that deeper state of focus? These are some neuroplasticity tools. This is going to sound super weird to some of you. A lot of this comes from the Huberman Lab podcast. He is a neuroscientist and researcher at Stanford. The podcasts are like 4 hours long each, or at least 2 hours long. So you get the Cliffs Notes here, but I highly recommend checking out his focus toolkit if you want to learn more. But here's the quick rundown. If you're trying to get your brain into that deeper state of focus, especially if you feel like you're that person with all the arms, this is one tool you can do. Having a hoodie on, having a hat, thinking about your environment overall to make you focus on what you're trying to focus on can actually be really supportive. But you can do something like this too. You can take a pen, look at it, and just focus on the pen for 30 seconds. It sounds strange, but it's recruiting your brain to come into this focused place and to bring that prefrontal cortex more online. You can also, this one's more challenging, so definitely start smaller and then build. You can look at that pen, but then also be paying attention to what's going on around it. Same idea. If you start to lose focus or you're just trying to ramp yourself up, these tools can help you to get your brain into that state ready to focus. That good stress comes back into play here. You might have seen cold plunges trending, things like that. Throw in the chat if you're a deadline-driven person, you need that rush of the pending doom of seeing it come closer and closer is what really motivates you. This is real. This is that sense of good stress, and we can use that to our advantage. There's nothing wrong with it. And especially if you're that kind of person, you're probably labeled a procrastinator, but that's just how you work. And there's some science behind that. So cold plunges can be a tool. I am the person who wants a 2nd-degree burn in her shower. I want it that warm. So this is not for me, but it's a way to bring your nervous system, your body into more of that aware and present state. I'm just going to check on the chat here. Not enough hours in the day. Someone shared, I barely sleep and it's getting worse. I feel like I take a nap and then up again in a few hours. Excuse me. So definitely recommend checking out that yoga nidra, but then also I'm happy to chat with you, but there's a lot of debate about the nap. I would try and put in yoga nidra instead of the nap because there's a chemical called adenosine. It's a sleep pressure that builds. And it can be this vicious cycle. If you're not sleeping well, of course, you're going to want to nap because you're tired. But when you nap, you take that pressure valve, you're decreasing that adenosine, which needs to build up to then be able to feel like you can fall asleep at night and stay asleep. So that's something to kind of noodle on there. Okay. Let me get back and I'll come back to the chat too towards the end to make sure. I think there's another question there. I want to make sure we have time for it. So meditating is another neuroplasticity tool. And if you've ever tried to meditate before, this might be very relatable. This is the practice. If we're thinking about our brain's ability to focus, when we're actually sitting down to do these things that our life requires of us, meditation is one way to notice. You're noticing what's happening, and then you're bringing your attention back to what you want to focus on. That's retraining your brain for when you're in, working on that project, working on that thing. If you notice a distraction, the phone buzzes, the whatever, this can help mitigate that switch cost effect because you're training your brain to recover faster and come back to what's front of mind and most of highest priority to you there. Last couple little strategies here, and then we're going to get into more Q&A. So these are other tools from that Huberman Lab podcast. They're going to sound weird, but this one in particular is my favorite. This is all rooted in the neuroscience. So binaural beats, you can throw into Spotify or YouTube, binaural beats at 40 hertz. This is essentially an auditory illusion. You're hearing tones that are different. If you put headphones on and listen to this, one tone's coming in one ear, is coming in the other. And it's recruiting, again, that prefrontal cortex to come back online, and it can really help with your focus. It sounds strange, but this is a strategy I have used the most. I did it earlier this morning, and it makes a huge, huge difference. And you can also use it in the same way. If your attention is starting to wane and you're in that 90-minute period, you can tap into this and try to use that to leverage that focus too. Same thing with white, pink, or brown noise. They have a similar effect. And if you're a caffeine drinker, good news, drinking that before a bout of trying to focus can be supportive as well. Last little tool here is I'd encourage you to think about your food. So I should have double checked, Teresa. I don't remember if I did a poll on this or not. So if I did, feel free to launch it. I think I cut it out to be more efficient with time, but check in now with yourself anecdotally. A lot of times when we feel like work, life, all the things are happening, we forget to eat. So check in on if you're keeping your body fueled to actually have the energy to do these things. So as we move forward, I want you to think about picking one tool from any of those, or even something else that you think you're most likely to try. And then we're going to get into integration here for the final wrap up. While people are answering, what's my greatest challenge? Love that question. So I think my greatest challenge is, certainly a few years ago, it was managing caretaking for, unfortunately, my dying mom, being present with my young daughter, running a business, being a friend, partner, human. That was most challenging time of my life. And I use all these tools to support myself. I'd say now it's just this loving what I do and doing as I say, not just as actually practicing what I preach. So turning it off, moving and being more present, and not kind of checking email, things like that when I'm trying to be connected to my family. Yeah. So people, laughter and breathing are two of the most popular here that we're going to try. Excuse me. And then creative expression and physical activity are runners up. Thank you all for sharing, and bring that with you as we create our plans now. So as you move into creating this to happen more in your life, think about that phone, think about that stimulation we were talking about. What can we do to support ourselves based on the environment around us here? Can you start to think about, are there things that just are distracting? When we talked about that neuroplasticity, we talk about those distractions and what's within your control. Excuse me, this cold is just coming up on here. So as we pick those things, you picked your tool, or maybe it's something else we didn't even talk about, but that when we checked in the beginning, you already know makes you feel better. How do we create your plan to move forward and integrate what we talked about today? So we have to establish something before we can improve its presence in our lives. So what activity are you prioritizing, and how can you stack it with something you already do without thinking? So we think about things in our lives that we do automatically. We probably brush our teeth every morning. We probably open our computer most times. So what is the thing you want to do, and how can you attach it to something you do already? So with that in mind, you can throw it in the chat, or you can write it down for yourself. What do you want to integrate moving forward after our conversation today? And again, what is something you already know that we maybe didn't even talk about that you want to just reconnect to move from the knowing to the doing? So use this formula and give us a second for that. I want to make sure we have a couple more minutes for questions as well. So what is the behavioral to do? Get really specific about it. All right, with that in mind, how can we make this even more likely to happen? Being that specific will make it more likely to happen, but can you take this moment now? Put it in your calendar, connect or write down who would be supportive to connect to, a score mentor, a friend, a colleague, whomever it might be, to have that accountability and support to continue or to start introducing any of these strategies to support work, life, everything in between. How can we know positive social interaction that helps us feel more grounded? How can we leverage that to integrate these things that are going to be so supportive in navigating whatever comes our way ahead? I want to take a moment for feedback and then also questions. So I know I shared a ton of information. If you want that Yoga Nidra guided body scan that I have created for you, if you don't mind taking a moment to complete the survey, it doesn't collect your email. So if you see a prompt for it, just skip it. Even if you put your email in, it doesn't go anywhere. You can skip through that. This is my thank you for providing feedback. If there was a specific tool, concept that I shared that was supportive, I'd love to know. Also, there's so many ways to tackle work-life integration. So if you hoped that we would have spoken about a certain area in here, I would love to know that too, so I can better serve others in moving forward. So once you're done, that Yoga Nidra will pop up as my thank you, and you'll have that to use again. If you have trouble falling asleep, staying asleep, you're just feeling really tired and not energized, that can be an incredibly supportive tool. So throw in the chat when you're done, and then I'll know, and feel free to throw questions in the chat as well, and we'll kind of wrap up from there. But if you throw in done when you're done, then I will know that we can move forward to our recap and our finale. And this should take less than a minute here.
So the yoga materials she's talking about, we just got a Q&A come in. They're at this, you scan this QR code. Yes.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
So you either type this in or scan the code, and it's my thank you to the code is REST. So if you scan the QR code, it'll just already be plugged in, and it'll ask you, I think, 3 quick questions that you just hit a button on, and then the Yoga Nidra will pop up for you. If you don't see REST already on there, if you can't scan the code for whatever reason, if you just go to talk.ac/aspire, you can type in rest there, and then that'll be the thing that brings up the Yoga Nidra as my thank you for answering. I think it's literally 3 questions on a Likert scale. And that's it. Let me know if you have any other questions. So yeah, either scanning the code, it'll already be on there, or typing it in where Teresa shared. Yeah. I want to be mindful of people's time. So as we kind of think about everything we talked about, we went tiny, nitty gritty to really big picture. I want us to start to think about moving from this place of why. Why did you come today? Why did you listen to the replay? And how can you let that why of why you want to feel more grounded, and I'll throw balance in quotes, why you want to feel like you're treading water less, that why will drive everything and be a good motivator to continue to come back, check in on your nervous system, check in on your strategies, check in on that circle of life. There's no reason why you can't leverage the SCORE community and your friends, family, whomever, to continue to create a little bit more intention as we move through this life that is so disconnected from that zooming out and that check-in. You can do that for yourself, and then give yourself the things that you need to feel better, mind, body, soul. those little things, the last thing I want to share is little things make a big impact. You did a 30 seconds, maybe less of breathing, and you felt more peace. This doesn't have to be complicated. We just need the support from one another and ourselves to integrate the things that we already naturally intrinsically know. So thank you all so much for taking the time to connect today. Let's see, any other questions here?
I don't think we have any other questions.
Awesome. Thank you all for taking the time, and I hope that everyone got, again, at least that one thing, even if it's not something I shared and you're just reconnecting to yourself, that you need to take good care. And thank you so much for taking the time.
Well, thank you, Aileen, and thank you to all of our participants today for attending. I will I should have that recording up on the website later today, if not by tomorrow morning, so that if anyone wants to rewatch today's presentation, which I don't know why you wouldn't, because it had a lot of great tips, and I'm sure there's things that people want to go back and catch some more information. So again, and if you are looking for a SCORE mentor to go through some of these work-life balance or any other business issues you're having, please go to the score.org/Boston website or the score.org website and type in your zip code, and that'll take you to a place you can ask for a SCORE mentor. So thank you, everyone. And thank you, Aileen. We're just thrilled that you took your time to share with us today.
Thank you for having me, Teresa. Take care, everyone.
Okay, bye.